Okay, we have started the webinar and
Yep.
welcome everyone who's just starting to stream in. And hi everyone, this is Queen. I'm the solutions consultant for Meiro CDP, and today as our regular webinar spot, we actually are inviting our friends in the market in the industry to kind of tap on their knowledge and gain an understanding on the best practices in working with customer data and driving customer experience. So that is the intention for the session today. But let me just maybe just open up with some context, right? Um, and I will introduce my esteemed speaker today in a moment. But YC has been an industry friend and contact and occasional mentor for a while, right? And when we invited YC into running his webinar with us, I was actually having a pre-brief with him about a month ago, and I prepared some questions just about his experience in general. And even in that pre-brief session, it turned into such a great discussion when we just naturally touch on so many different topics. We started talking about the evolution of the Martech ecosystem, starting from social media and then with all the different tools coming in, with the explosion of data, and with then it becomes really managing customer experience, really became managing the data that we have about customer experience, right? So the Martech, the marketers in the world need to be very technical, and it feels like we are now in a different era that used to need to be technical, but there's so many things that kind of make it easier and make it kind of faster for you to ship. And so we're going to talk about that. We touch on everything from like the composable AI tech stack to this very recent trend of vibe coding and how that translates into vibe marketing. And we had a great time, talking about the possibilities and what's possible now for marketers. And even, going into talking about how then change management and how brands should be thinking about managing their customer experience now that the how and the where has changed so much and so quickly, right? So that is where we decided to do a very different style of a webinar today, where you're not going to see any slides, right? But don't worry, it's not going to be just my face talking or YC talking. He has a very exciting mural board to walk us through in a more organic way. So I'm super looking forward to that. Okay, so with that being said, let me just introduce YC. YC is how do I even say this? YC has lived many lives. Let's say he has experience across martech practices, customer experiences, business intelligence, implementation of customer data platform, marketing automation, and performance marketing. So you name it. He's personally driven, strategized, and personally taught people about it. And YC is also a lecturer for NTU, where I graduated actually many years ago, but he's now a lecturer for digital marketing transformation there. And most recently, the most recent venture that YC has had is actually with a super exciting title, AI Experience Architect for Mavic.AI. I mean, talk about that job title, right? Super exciting. So before we go into the topic for today and sharing some visual guides on our journey, maybe I'll just introduce you, YC, to say a few words. And out of all the things I mentioned, is there anything else that I'm missing that you would like to highlight about your experience?
No, thank you, Queen, and hello everyone. This is exciting because oh, Queen, I think you covered it all. I think the title of AI Experience Architect seems to be quite an interesting title. When I first discussed with the founder of Mavic, we're discussing what is it that I take care of. So she said, make sure that the platform is more usable, make the user use more, and get more users. And that itself is a very tall order. Quite interestingly, actually, when I look into the UX UI of thing, and I studying all the AI platforms that are coming around now, it's really down to how you actually use user experience to be able to enrich and make their life better. So very interestingly, that is where I started. So I also take care of customer success in that way. And in the back end, I work a lot more with the tech team, where actually they work with the infrastructure, where they keep changing the infrastructure due to the ever-changing AI landscape. How do you actually make it even more sort of composable, letting the agent work with themselves so that they derive the answer without us actually interventing so much? Strangely, when I talk to the tech lead, he says instead of very low level coding, they're doing very high level coding now to be able to actually make
Mm.
the agent work with themselves. So we are sort of orchestrating instead of hard coding. So it's very exciting to look at the back end, then look at the users, and then try to match everything together. Yep. So that's a little bit about myself. Yep. Thank you, Quinn. Yep.
That's super exciting, right? Because we are talking about and at first when we talked about vibe coding and vibe marketing, and it just sounds like, hey, make AI write codes for me. And my first
Mm.
thought was, oh no, technical debt. That is scary, right? But from looking at how it's being done, it seems like it's really making good engineers become great engineers, right? And all of the
Mm.
implication from there, you ship faster, you're able to build more experiences, and what it means for the way that we manage and deliver the customer experience. So let's go right into it. Maybe the very first kind of dipping our toe into into that. My very first question would be kind of let's just talk about the concept of deliver a personalized customer experience to begin with, right?
Mm.
I work in a field where we very much support that that delivery of customer experience with clean and structured data, and that's where Meiro CDP and our mission has been is to make it possible that organization have you know integrated and structured data to be able to use as a basis for
Mm.
for all that context or that behavioral context where your AI can then speak to and deliver that, recommendation or personalized experience at the right place at the right time. So that's really the core of it. And that has been what is thought of as the way you deliver good experience, right, for many years. Now, when we are talking about the marketing moment that we have today, right, and
Yeah.
AI is possibly changing a lot of this rapidly. So, from your perspective, from where you are, right, how do you see that using AI is enhancing customer experience, where it is that it is deliver the most values?
Wow, okay. Maybe you should jump to the mural board and take a look into how the moments in time.
Perfect.
Yep, okay, I think this
Yeah.
would be a perfect time to start that.
Mhm.
Yep. So I think today's webinar is a little bit different. I think instead of using slides, we're going to jump straight into using a mural board. So on this mural board, think of it like a timeline, right? Across time, where the top half is actually the customer experience, where the user experience it. And the bottom is actually the AI marketing transformation that comes along. And I think when Queen, you told me to look into this, it's like what are the moments in time that has actually changed all this, and some observation, ideas, hype, or even some of the things that's happening. So let's take a look over here, right? So we all know that the internet started some time ago, and I was in that era. And then came the social media boom. Then came the iPhone moment. And along there, somewhere along between these two moments was a big data moment, I would say, where everyone was talking about big data. So using a lot more data, where computing power actually ramp up and able to actually do whatever we needed to do personalization. But the true moment came when there was actually ChatGPT. And why? I mean, ChatGPT has been a long time in the making. So there was ChatGPT 2 and nobody actually really heard about until it was really usable for everyone. And I think here's where once it was given to people, and it was like, wow, instead of going to Google and looking for results and crawling through 10 pages or 3 pages website, finding the answer and then compiling it, I can ask ChatGPT and ChatGPT give him an answer. So the customer experience seems to have changed. The first customer experience that have changed is speed to knowledge. I'm able to get knowledge faster. And then from there, then we realize that, hey, with all the last 20 months, how many of your search have actually went into the share of AI? And that itself is scary because within it, if I'm not going to count from Claude to Gemini, there's a lot of this that's happening. And if you were to look into it, I think you talk about coding and technical depths. I think a lot of people use it very interestingly for actually coding, where there's actually a lot of no-code platform that comes up like Lovable, Cursor, or even Replit. And that actually make user realize that instead of buying platforms or buying a digital product, I can actually build my own app. So my friend actually, he has a friend who moved to the UAE, and then he realized that he needs an app to help him with his prayers. So he actually built one from
Mm,
scratch, and he built in public, and actually he shipped in 4 weeks. And that was really, I shipped in 4 weeks for my community. And to him, it was an
mm,
achievement. He did everything himself. He did everything with feedback on the go, and then he actually got it really well done. And actually, it's what we call vibe coding. Imagine that he served a community of 300 people, and maybe it grows to 3,000. And if you to fragment the world, I think that sort of changed the way that the entire world actually see a product or experience. So you could tailor experience down to, instead of having everyone, you're actually tailoring it to a smaller community of user. So that itself changes the expectation, right? So speed to knowledge and speed to product. That too actually
mm.
changes quite a lot. Yep. What do you think? Have you seen any interesting product that was actually built?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, look, it's more of that spirit of, built in public that is, for me,
Mm,
is very interesting. And what you mentioned gave me a thought of two things that came out of it, right? When you mentioned number one is, I don't have something that worked for me, so I'm gonna build it.
mm,
Right? And of course,
yeah,
it's early, so it's not the answer to all the questions. But if that is where people's mind is going there, right? So then
yeah,
it becomes a different paradigm altogether. Because
yeah,
then, in terms of marketing, in terms of personalization, right? What is the true value that we are offering to people?
yeah,
That is, more than creating one single product, one single experience that's just for me. I mean, how much
yeah,
more tailored can it get? Right. And the other thing that you
mm,
touch on as well is, a lot of the search and a lot of the discovery in quotation
mm,
is through
yeah,
AI now. So we are kind of really collapsing the funnel, right? There's no discovery, there's no consideration anymore. There's,
yeah,
I type it into a chatbot and then there's an answer. What is the best, tool for meeting recording, for example,
yeah.
right? Compared to A and B. So brands have less opportunity to influence and to be in front of the consideration. So, you know, what do they do? How do they adjust to this? Have you seen these problems being surfaced across?
So I mean, beyond just asking within the chat, a lot of the search
Mm,
engine now has an AI overview. So instead of
yeah,
ranking on page one of Google now, you have to rank in the top AI overview. That's actually only 20% of the top view of the page. And that
yeah.
itself actually changes a lot. And it also seen a lot of drop in traffic to a lot of websites, because once someone gets that information that they need, they don't need to go browse. So
Mm,
personalization has happened at this scale. Now the question is, using ChatGPT or any of these platform, are the results really personalized to you, or is it biased against certain results? So that's also interesting,
mm,
because that technically will spiral into a different personalization trail, right? And of course, at the back of it, once people know how to code and everything, comes the next wave where you see AI automation. And in the AI automation world, you have the Zapier of the world, like Gumloop or N8N. So what they do is actually they have built a way to help you chain up. So for example, I have Excel sheet. I actually chain up all the list of events that I have, and then I connected it and say, now send an invite to every single of it in my Gmail and populate it. So that's a very simple use case. Now I would say the extreme use cases that I've seen is go to Facebook ad library, go and read all the competitors' ad, analyze the video ads,
mm.
come up with a script, break it down, create a script for me, create multiple versions for me, put it into voice generation, video generation, post it back into my Instagram. So that would be another role, right?
That's
I mean,
crazy. That's
that's
super
crazy.
creative, by the way.
So,
Yeah.
and every single step along the way, they use a different AI. And that
Mm,
brings a very big and very interesting thinking behind the scene, because I'm not only seeing this as a consumer product, I'm also seeing that, I mean, beyond the enterprise. That used to be enterprise space, right? You want to use multiple products, you have to do a very expensive setup between Adobe and Salesforce. But now you can actually do it at a consumer level, and you can choose multiple. It's almost like you pay a flat fee and you get to enjoy the usage of 10 of the popular Gen AI products. And that's a very interesting point where we come into composability. And I think if you look back at it, I think that is also being amplified a lot more during what we call the DeepSeek moment. I think when DeepSeek was released and it was said to be like 1/6 the cost of OpenAI, that was really quite interesting, because at that point in time, everyone switched because there was a cost pressure of using a more expensive LLM. And that DeepSeek moment sort of make everyone question, is my infrastructure correct? am I able to be agile enough to be able to switch out? And even at the consumer level, if they have access to all this, what's going to happen at the enterprise level? And I think when I mean, I love when you say you invite friends of Meiro to this chat. I've been with Meiro since like the early days, and I've seen how you all evolve and actually change your tech stack to be totally agile, to be mounted on a multi-cloud. So that comes down to three different layers like that I see. One is actually the touch point layer, which is the experience layer. It can be ChatGPT as a front end. It can be agent talking to agent, which you will never see it anywhere. There's no UX. And there could be a UX per se for human. And at the AI decisioning level, it could be DeepSeek today, and tomorrow, if another country release a more powerful model at a fraction of the cost, people will switch, but then the prompts will change. So your infrastructure
Mm.
have to change. But then what I'm hearing now in the market is that a lot of people are now looking at the data layer. If the data layer is not solid without the right machine learning, you can actually power the
Mm.
generative AI down to actually the touchpoint layer. So these three
Mm.
layers seems to have to work very closely together. What do you think? I mean, you have been in the CDP space for a long time. I mean, what do you think of this?
So it's interesting when you said that because it really covers uh, quite a few things that we kind of stumbled upon in the
Mm,
early day when we actually built CDP as a product, right? So two things came to
yep,
mind for me. Number one is just the fact that we realized, and that was back then when we built CDP, it was more about the fact that the requirement for data residency that made us
mm,
realize that we can't be tied, we can't be like a software as a service model that we are tied to a specific cloud or a specific infrastructure stack, right? We have to be able to be composable in the sense that I can put my architecture in any cloud that belongs to the client or that we manage, but that can be put in any location and comply to any set of requirement. And interestingly enough, it draws a parallel to the moment we have today, where it's about not tying yourself to a particular kind of LLMs, as you said, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a crazy race, right? We
yep,
see performance improvement in a matter of weeks, right? It's not even in
yep,
years. So being able to keep up and to just, as you said, easily switch out and that agility that built in composable way, I think is super valuable. And the other thing that
mm,
that came to mind when you talked about data layer, I think is that um, I am more and more convinced that even with LLM with data, right? Um, I mean with LLMs and Gen AI, right? That data availability is even more so. I mean, I've
mm,
seen people building in public and kind of using end or build assistants, right? That pull from your calendar and then check with availability in your calendar and then setting up meetings. It all requires a very good set of data. Just like you can hire a very expensive and very smart um, assistant. But if you don't give the
yep,
context, that assistant can't
mm,
do anything. They don't know what your priorities are. They don't know where to get the data from, from what source and what is your go-to when it comes to source of truth, right? And that's where I'm
yep,
even more convinced about, building that data layer being, the strong foundation for your AI layer to be able to really thrive. And data layer here is at the end of the day, there's many discussion I think around the fact that thanks to LLMs, you don't need clean and structured data anymore.
yep,
Um, and I would argue with that because there's, you know, structured data is still going to be the way that you feel a lot of the processes, but that LLM is going to allow you to very quickly kind of look at certain types of, let's say, conversational or behavioral data in real time, and extract, insight from there, but then leverage on your, structured data that, transactional data, historical data, and that is where the power is. So I think there's a lot of parallel in how that composability in the AI stack is built with how we have always seen as the best practice for kind of architectural built in organizations. It's just new use cases and new tools to work with it.
yep. It's so funny, right? That all of them actually are quite similar because in
Yeah.
theory, the whole methodology of IT is quite similar.
Mhm.
We've got a lot of grounds to cover, so I'm going to just speed out a little bit. So we
Mm-hmm.
have this DeepSeek moment, right? And then from there, if you have heard of the new AI Manners or actually Gen Spark, they actually claim that they have the same level of operator, which actually, if you give a short instruction, they can do everything for you. So for example, you can tell operator or Manners, I want to book a trip to Japan in the next 5 weeks. I can go any weekend. This is my budget, and they'll go and scout everything for you, plan everything, even call the restaurant for you to book in the native language. So that's already crazy, right? But between that little moment that we are going to hit, I mean, what we have seen happen, I mean, I think that will be 2 weeks ago, where you have the Ghibli moment. Everyone created Ghibli style. But while everyone's creating Ghibli style, you might not have realized that you can ask it to create many versions of ads. So ChatGPT, I mean, or OpenAI has ventured into this. You can do infographics with it. You can actually create product imagery with it. You can say, I took a
Mm-hmm.
picture of myself and say, make this man sell Xiaomi 15. And then he did. So for example, that was really cool where they came out with an ad for it. So very interestingly, this whole vibe marketing seems to have taken off. It makes people think, hey, actually I only need ChatGPT for this. And ChatGPT turn on memories, which makes it hyper-personalized. This is a key
Mm-hmm.
moment where if you look into personalized experience, that's something that is going to be a bit interesting. So if everyone's getting personalized experience with memory across multiple conversation, how do you think they will expect that from brands? Because if
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT know me so well, what else will I know from brand, right? So this is really an interesting evolution that we are seeing. Now we're gonna go up a little bit from the vibe coding. You
And
can see that.
And
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
YC, so sorry to,
No, no.
to cut off, but just on that point before we move on, that just
Yeah.
give me a thought, like, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this because when you talk about
Mm,
when everyone's getting such good personalized response from ChatGPT and the LLMs, and then that translates to the expectation in
mm,
other services, right? That made me
yep,
think that it's a very similar moment to what we have talked about maybe like a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, when we were saying that, hey, because we were getting such good recommendations from things like TikTok and Instagram and social media, that
yep,
expectation is then translated to other brands, right? And then it changes the data value exchange because we have always, and for me personally, I've always seen um, personalization and customer data as
mm,
it's about an exchange. It's not just about do I give you data or not, but what do I get back from that, right? So the more
yep,
value I can see, the more data I'm willing to give. And with ChatGPT, oh my God, I don't think I want to show you my own ChatGPT account because I share a
mm,
lot of personal information for, and because there's a great data value exchange, the
mm,
recommendations, the analysis are so personalized to me and the way that I think and my goals that I'm willing to give a lot of data. So I'm just, yeah, I'm like wondering if it's for bad or for good. How is it going to change the way that uh, we value that data that we are giving out now? That's just
yep.
interesting, I think, for me to for brands to also think about.
So that there's a research recently that show what people use ChatGPT in
Mhm.
2024 versus 2025. And 2024, there's a
Yeah.
lot of writing text and everything. In 2025,
Mm,
it's telling me who I am, a lot of emotional
mm,
support, and telling
mm,
what I should do. That's interesting because
yeah.
people have leaned into the AI to do that. Now, into your point, who controls this data? Is that privacy
Mm,
enforced? And if I
mhm,
were to entrust my ChatGPT to do something for me, to let's say buy air ticket based on my preference, how much of that preference should be allowed to be passed on to brands to execute on? So, for
yep.
example, if I'm to ask, ChatGPT to buy an air ticket for me, or areas that I like to go, based on whatever they know about me, that's scary. That's the amount of information that they can personalize the entire trip for me. And from there, what data should I allow to go out of ChatGPT, and what should I keep in? I think that's a very interesting, especially now that memory is turned on, right? So
Mm,
interesting point. Who take care of the privacy? Now let's jump on to
yeah.
this part, right? If you see that this entire vibe coding has taken off, where there's Firebase Studio, and also Canva. Canva has joined the coding scene now, where you can do vibe
Mm,
coding with it. And technically, at the end of the day, it's really a community that they're building. Now, if you were to come back down to this part, we look through the composability. Are we able to track the intent of agent data? Because if all search have now moved away from Google or move away from your website down to the
mm,
agent itself, how can we actually do it? So interesting, one of my agency team member who I work with said, hey, didn't you just ask ChatGPT what are the popular asks from that country? That was like, oh, that's interesting. So I tried. So what are the popular searches in this category that is? And then ChatGPT will answer you, but they will not give you the full statistic. But it's good enough for you to look at it and benchmark against Google search. So that's
Mm.
really down to that personalization that has happened. Now, I think it's abstract as of now. I think we should jump into a real case study to talk about it, right?
Yes, please.
Yep. Okay. So let's say travel. I mean, travel is my favorite topic. So let's say there's a travel customer journey, right? So of course, let's talk about the part where is the customer experience and the bottom part is brand. So how would it be in the age of AI? Up here, you can actually take a look at it where you can see there's a planning process. People are actually inspired by social. They actually discuss with friends. They set up a chat group. So the question is, who are the real KOL here? Are they AI avatar? But I would believe that the real KOLs, the human KOLs, will still have a strong community that will actually bring in you the performance you need. So there is a very interesting part where AI automate the how, but still people wants to feel that get inspired by human. And it's really social is still big in this world. And what we can see is that when you talk to AI, say, I want to do this, and AI could actually create a mood board for you, could actually list down all the itinerary for you. Now, as a brand, how can you get involved in this conversation? So, for example, if there was a chat to be created, can the brand join in? And then can my AI agent consolidate all your requests across all your friends? You know, if you go on a road trip with 5 friends, it's almost impossible to actually get consensus on where to go. And what you could
Yes.
see, what could yeah, I mean what you could see over here in the next part is that as they search on for various you know, I would say options. I mean, the AI overview actually gives you the recommendation before the first search result. So as a brand, you need to actually be SEO, AEO, or GEO. I mean, answer engine optimization. I mean, generative engine optimization or LLM engine optimization. I mean, there's many terms for the same thing. So get your FAQ ready so that the AI agents can actually pick it up and then put it into their recommendation. So you're actually not only personalizing for humans, you're actually personalization sort of like there's this tactic that you do for agents also. And as the
Mm.
user goes on the customer journey, the question is, who is actually searching? Is it the human or the agent that is searching? And can the agent use the human's preference to book? And will there be an off-screen deal? So in this part, there's this big talk about MCP, which is actually the Model Context Protocol, where actually Claude has built. And then they have found a way to actually reach out to various Airbnb. And Google has actually launched A2A, agent-to-agent protocol. And I think this is something that brands should look out for as part of their tech stack, definitely. Because if not, you're going to miss out a big part of the agent search that will actually
Mm.
enable you to actually win in the new AI economy. So the next part will be if along the way, are there ways that AI can optimize the route for you? So for example, a platform like Wonderlog actually helps travelers optimize their route to enjoy more. Are you able to then showcase the one that has better margin for you on the brand part of point of view to reach out to agents so that the agents actually can recommend that to the users? Now, of course, after that, you have the personalization, which we already have in our tech stack now, where we do remarketing. The question then now would be that is your customer data ready? Are you able to track them through the whole journey, offline, online, or even agentic, to be able to personalize it for them? Of course, as a brand and a customer, you would definitely want to, for example, actually do your own social posting along the way. How cool would it be that as you take the picture along the way, they actually select the best shot for you and upload as, the user say, I want it daily updated or I want it every 3 hours updated on my best moment of my trip. And then followed by a recap of the post at the end of it. So that's really interesting because if you were to look into how AI enable people in the customer experience, that would change. If you provide utility for the user to use, they will use your platform. And in exchange, you can do personalization for them. And if unfortunately some, destination closed because of a snowstorm or anything, can the itinerary be tweaked? And then that's really from a customer point of view. But from a brand point of view, how can you leverage that? And at the end of the day, if the agent can actually help you trade off your best loyalty point, um, will you be able to then incentivize the user to go on to the next trip? And on the brand side, it will be, will the AI agent recommend us again? And it's really an ongoing sort of effort, right? So you look at it from a customer experience point of view, the whole personalization has tweaked because the tools that they use have changed. Now on the brand side, they have to then find ways to get into that, the experience by providing the right utility and being there at the right channels. Yep. That's quite a lot to take in for a short sharing. Yeah. Mm.
Perfect. That's awesome. How, if you just have to throw a number out there, how soon do you think this entire flow can be achieved with the technologies we have today?
Mm, Given the speed of how people are rapidly engineering things, I would say anything from 6 months to a year. I think most of this might be possible. There's a very strong race to see who can actually come up with the agentic flow now. And I think with the computing power, it's possible. I would think that on this end, while the race is on, the other end, the brands are actually struggling to keep up from what I see. There's a lot of enablement that's needed, whether at the data layer
Mm.
or even enabling the change management. I mean, I've coached many brands and actually we work on their internal team. That itself will take a good 18 to 24 months. So there's a gap in the
Right,
market, definitely.
exactly.
Yeah. And I think you
Yeah,
can feel
so
in,
you do. Sorry, yeah, sorry. So, I think I was gonna ask, something that you were going to touch on anyway, but yeah, so you do
mm,
a lot of that enablement for brands,
yep.
and at various level of I guess readiness or maturity. Uh, what have you seen as, generally what their journey has been like? Where are most brands today, and what are kind of the steps to get to this point where they are able to, leverage on some of these technologies?
Yep, that's an interesting point. I love to say I have a slide for it, but yeah, we have a part of the chart for it. So I would say there's three layers. The first part that we look into is actually, yep. So it is actually prompt engineering. I think while everyone has different experience with prompt engineering, it's very interesting to if you could baseline everyone because that itself will change the productivity quite quickly.
Mhm.
So I work with on the extreme end, I work with a lot of team members within my team to we are looking at how we work with agents. And on the other end, we have been coaching. For me, I coach outside during the school and also with some government sort of and other entities. We realize that the maturity is really different. And once you get the base maturity, it's like getting the language right, right? If you learn the language of prompting, you improve the productivity. Second level is to get them to automation, and the third part is then to be able to think of agentic design. But a lot of things is really down to change management. I think brands need to think about how they want to do and get part of this new customer experience and to be able to enable it internally. Um, and I think one interesting fact that is here that why is Gen AI more visible than traditional machine learning AI? I think it's the artifacts. It's because when a user key in something, you can see something move. Now, this sounds very
Mm.
superficial, right? But at a very, very interesting level, that there seems to be progress and there seems to be a feedback mechanism. And that makes the user think that things are moving. And that's not wrong. It's basically if you're able to have something tangible for your AI initiative, actually it does help. And it's actually help the user also see the progress and then they come along on this journey to help you transform. Yep. Hmm.
Yep. That's awesome. I think what you mentioned is really true, which is that people respond so much more to what's visible and what you can see, be it, something that's impressive, be it a change, be
Yep.
it the speed at which, things happen for you, right? So a lot of the benefits from machine learning, traditional AI, tends to be baked into the processes, right? Better recommendation over time, which is great, but that's, it's not so much like the ChatGPT moment that we had, which is like I type something and there's an answer that is answering to
Mm.
me by a machine, right? That's really
Yep.
quite something. That's
Mm.
awesome. So look, let's talk about how, organization can make it possible for themselves to, to prepare, right? And you've already talked kind of about a short roadmap to that, right? What else? What are the factors that you would say essentially bring organizations who are successful? What else do they need to think about when it comes to, let's talk about from a marketing perspective.
Yep. So, well, I would say that where do we go from here, right? In that aspect, especially in
Mm.
marketing. I think this is a strange AI wave because it's everyone wants to move the AI wave very fast. It's almost to the speed that everyone can catch up. And one is to one personalization is the expectation. Now, from a marketing point of view, I think you need to start thinking how you are able to deliver to the expectation to have that edge. So if technology comes to a level ground, then I think what really differentiates is really the customer experience. Whether it is
Mm.
using, so think of it like ChatGPT moment where they change from Google to ChatGPT, and down to what do they expect out from AI now, because they want less options to think about to sieve through. They want decision make for them to a certain level, and how can brand actually catch up with that? And I think at the end of the day, while there's a lot of shiny objects in AI, the question is we should ask like what doesn't change. It's easy to be caught up with the
Mm.
AI
I like
shiny
that.
objects,
Mm.
right? Like what the human needs, I mean, and what are really down to things that won't change. So the need for speed, the need for convenience, the need for lower price, or the need for options to a certain level. I mean, these are things that you need to think and where your brand stand for. And I think that the last thing that was a bit counterintuitive is that not everything needs AI. So I think this is to the entire sort of a sharing of AI or how where we are moving. Actually, sometimes the problem is not with AI. Sometimes it might be as simple as a product design. So it's really now ironing out where the problem is, where you deliver the best customer experience. And we know that regardless of technology and platform, customer experience will be the one that actually will prevail and actually give you that edge. Yep. Yeah. So that's really the sharing. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I would just like to remind the participants, if you have any question, feel free to leave it in the webinar chat, and if there's any question, we'll go to that before we come to the end. So just to start to wrap it up a little bit, right? For you as a practitioner, as somebody who has been in the industry for a while and who has gone through all these waves, right? And had to adapt to all of this, changes and new trends and new waves in digital marketing. Uh, for you right now at this moment, what are some of the types of materials? I don't know, books, podcasts. How do you keep yourself updated, and what are your source of knowledge or inspiration to keep abreast of the industry, um,
Wow.
innovation?
Okay. Wow. So wow, that's quite. So my LinkedIn feed is almost like my daily
Mm,
newsletter for Gen AI. So I follow everyone from AWS to know where in terms of technical infrastructure they're going, and I follow quite a lot of creators looking into explaining and sharing the latest of AI trends. So for
mm,
example, there's a new product. So every day, every 2 3 days, there seems to be a new product. I mean, similar to each another, but there seems to be, I mean, or people like to say they are GPT rappers, right? But it's
mhm,
also interesting to see how the technology have evolved in a few ways. So one in January, how the main cloud, ChatGPT, Gemini, they have evolved and they have connected to other people. And also how do you actually build more of those AI automation? And the last part is really interestingly, the creative space is the one that actually let me get inspired a lot. So for example, Kling AI or down to even the latest one from China, I think there's an open creator where actually can put in a script and it's actually write the entire story for you using whichever LM you want, split it out into 10 different chapters, and then they use
mm.
create images, and then from there they create the video for it. And they're just waiting to stitch it out. And once that's done, you have a full video. So with that, as you see the evolution, you're able to sort of pace and get a feel of where the market is going. I think that will be exciting. I think the question then would be, it's not about just viewing the latest news, right? The shiny object. It's to look back and how it's going to disrupt, your organization and how we're going to apply it. Yeah. Hmm. So that
Yeah,
could
yeah,
be it.
absolutely.
You could go to my LinkedIn and see the people I follow. I think those are the crazy amount of people I
Nice.
follow. But those are quite interesting to see, because I would think that's a very good source of information, especially now. I think it's good to keep up to date. I discussed with one of my strategist friend from a big media agency locally, and then I said it's really trying to catch up. And then with that, then we see how we can quickly apply it back to our work. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, and look, we have basically our audience tends to be, marketers and people in the field at different level of maturity. So maybe the question for you is if you have any advice or any suggestions for marketers who are, in this moment where there's data, there's marketing strategy, there's technology, there's so many different things that's demanding of their skills, and there's attention that used to be just marketing, and then we had data, and then we had technology, and now we have AI. So
Yep.
what would you think are, essential skills that marketers need to absolutely master, to be able to keep relevant and to continue to do good work in the moment that we are in?
Wow. Okay, that's a big topic. So I think at the end of it, marketing is still the understanding of human truth. To be able to understand how we communicate and make people
Mm.
take, I would say, and take action, right? And that's the core of our marketing. But I think because of the technology that you need, I would like to sum it up with a little chart over here. I mean, it looks a little bit
Yes.
complex. So what at the end of the day that you're going to deliver for anyone is to experience your brand, is to experience it through multiple channels, right? I think the question is to be able to have a very strong feel and gut, where where everything is moving, especially in terms of channels. So are the customer moving away from traditional digital channel? I know it's an oxymoron. I mean, our website and everything, they might be moving away to a ChatGPT. In terms of being able to acquainted by the technology, I think Gen AI is the latest thing that you need to pick up. I think the question is your Martech stack agile enough to switch component to improve efficiency? Now, within this short sentence itself, it needs you to understand the technology needed for marketing nowadays. I mean, it has gotten complex, but without knowing that, that's really tough. So, I graduate with School of Computing, knowing a little bit of technical knowledge. So when I went into marketing, I think it was easy because I know the programmers cannot smoke me. They say this is very difficult. I say, can't you use a RSS feed for it? And then they was like, okay, well, this guy know his tech stuff. Yeah, better not, smoke him on this, right? So I think being able to have that technology knowledge will be important. And of course, then at the end of it, are you able to build your community? I mean, there's a rumor that ChatGPT is building their own social. I mean, we talk about having their own personalized, a lot of personal information with ChatGPT now, right? The question is then, would that be used back with you on a social platform? Think of it, they will be probably the most deeply, I would say, most powerful social network if there is ever one, because they will know a lot more of your thought process and nuances. And at the end of it,
Yeah, when you said that,
yeah,
when you told me that, I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy, and that makes a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, that's what, tapping into our deepest desire for being understood, for connection,
yep,
and for kind of self-actualization, which is something
yep,
that, with, through the way that we ask questions, the way that we seek answers, that's already there. So it's like, it's one of those
yep,
things where I think to connect the dots backwards is easier, right? Because then you're
yep.
like, yeah, that makes sense. But then to be able to see, connect those dots and to see those potential and how those things converge, that's quite a leap. So yeah, so let's see what's gonna happen on that front on the social media by OpenAI.
Yep. So you think about it in this way, right? I mean, a marketer must know the channels very well. They must know the tech stack to be able to enable it, to be able to generate it fast
Mhm.
enough for them. They must have the data and the community. And then the last part, which is actually the most difficult part, is to determine if everyone else have Gen AI and customer data, the really what's left behind is your brand voice and your domain expertise to be able to deliver content that will become
Mhm.
your differentiator. So that might
Yeah.
become a very tough part for the, in personalization in the age of AI. Anyway, I've actually dropped the link for the mural into the chat where I think everyone is just like flying around on the mural board now. So, but yes, yeah. So any questions, just put it back into the chat.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, YC. I feel like this is your students are so lucky, because if this is how you kind of go through concepts and examples, then all the lecture classes are going to fly through super quickly. So definitely appreciate the delivery, and thank you so much for your open sharing today. Um, Maybe just last thing, for those who are too shy to be asking any question, if the participant were to find out more about you, where should they find you? Is it on LinkedIn? Not sure if we still have YC there. Ah, there he is. Seems like we just lost you for a moment, but don't worry.
Okay. I was about to say,
Oh,
Queen, we are
good.
on time, and then suddenly I got disconnected. Yeah, so it's like, okay, I'm back.
That's a sign. That's a sign.
Yeah. Okay.
Your laptop is like enough. Yeah, maybe just the last thing, as you know, if people were to, want to connect with you and find out more, where's the best place? LinkedIn?
Yep, LinkedIn will be the best place. Our best place to actually connect me. You can't find YC Yak actually, so you most will have to type my real name, my full name. Hold on, just let me put that into the chat. Yeah.
Awesome.
Um.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
YC. So once again, as I mentioned before, I love the delivery, and I love, this style of, walking through these concepts, visually. And yeah, thank you for all the participants who joined us today as well. We are, experimenting this time with a different style of fireside chat. So let us know what you thought, and whether you
Yep.
you want to see more of this, and whether there's related topics that you want us to do the same for the next webinar, and we'll be happy to look into that. Meiro and friends. All right.
Yep.
So with that, we just came to the end of the hour. So thank you, everyone, and I hope to see you next time in the next topic.
All right.
Any
Thank
last
you.
thing, Lulu, on closing out the house, or we just end now?
Just that everyone could expect the recording after this
Perfect.
webinar. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.